Right, now what we're going to study today, or what we're going to learn about with this little, hopefully under 5-minute video clip, is Germany, the bits we're not very good at St Michael's, which is basically anything from 1945 through to 1990. Now, we start with, at the end of the war, down to Yalta and Potsdam, we end up with two separate Germanys divided into zones. West Germany, which belongs to, it becomes a capitalist half, and East Germany, which becomes a communist half. So effectively, you end up with 4 zones, East and West Germany, and 4 zones of Berlin as well. So that is the situation in 1945. Now, the first major event of the Cold War is this one, the Berlin airlift, which is where, due to a new currency being released in the western zones of Berlin, the East gets upset. Stalin in particular gets upset and tries to starve the West out of Berlin by blockading all roads and rail supplies in and out for a year, between 1948 and 1949. So what the Allies do is they airlift supplies in every 90 seconds, including sweets for small children, for a year, which in the end leads to Stalin giving up his blockade and a minor success for the West. Now, one thing that we have to look at is basically development of the two countries, East and West Germany. Now, the one person that we see as being responsible for the growth in the West is this man, Konrad Adenauer. Now, amongst some of the many things that he does, there's a 50% tax on all wealthy, rebuilding of smokestack industries, and contributing money or pumping money into high-end technology. Okay, so he's somebody that we see as being a key player in the development of West Germany. Okay. Now, one of the things that Konrad Adenauer does is he takes Marshall aid from the United States of America. About $1,300 billion worth of aid from the United States with which to rebuild their country. The East doesn't take this money. Okay. Right. Another development is the capitalist West joins NATO in 1949 with these countries here, who if you do geography and look at maps, you may be able to name. In retaliation, these countries here in red, who don't have a lot of choice in the matter, join the Warsaw Pact, which is basically the communist equivalent of NATO. Okay, now, in 1949, what we end up with is two countries, the FRG, West Germany, capitalist, the GDR, East Germany, communist. Over here, we've got Konrad Adenauer, over here, we've got Walter Ulbricht in charge, and obviously Stalin controlling most of the rest of it. Now, we move on and we're looking again, still the two questions, the development of the Cold War and the development of the two Germanys. Now, one of the big developments for West Germany is it joins this, the European Coal and Steel Community, or as some of mine like to call it, the European Coal and Steel Club. Right, now what that basically means is France and Germany pooling their resources together to make themselves more wealthy, and basically helps them to trade more easily because obviously they've got more to throw in, more to bring to the table. Okay. That develops in 1957 with the introduction of a few more countries, which makes a bigger trading bloc with more resources and more money with which to trade. Okay. Now, the next big event that we come to in terms of the Cold War is obviously the West is getting a lot richer due to the things we talked about in the previous there. The East, on the other hand, is becoming poorer and poorer. Now, by 1961, 3.6 million migrants have left East Side for West Side. Okay? So what the communists decide to do to stop this migration is to build a wall across the centre of Berlin, stopping the migrants from leaving. So it becomes known as the Berlin Wall. This is also part of the bigger picture of what's happening in the Cold War and tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. Okay. Now, the next thing that we really come to, we jump on a fair way here, is we start to look at the 70s and 80s. Now, in West Germany, this fella here, Willy Brandt, starts to become important. Okay. Now, he is responsible for the closening of ties between East Side and West Side of Germany with what is known as Ostpolitik. Ostpolitik basically means closening of relationships or closening political and economic ties. So the two Germanys in the 70s and 80s are becoming closer to one another. Okay. Now, in the end, Willy Brandt's work feeds into this fella, Helmut Kohl, and Helmut Kohl is the person that we see as being responsible for the eventual reunification of Germany. Again, he brings them closer together until we get the Treaty of October, which basically sets up reunification. So he's a key person in Germany, the two Germanys becoming closer together by the 1990s. Okay? Now, in 1989, the Berlin Wall comes down, which is a symbolic, I suppose, a symbol of the end of the two separate Germanys and the beginning of a new Germany where East and West join back together again. Now, there's a few other factors behind this. Obviously, Helmut Kohl. We've also got Gorbachev and closer ties between the East and the West. And Gorbachev's more to do with perestroika, glasnost, openness, restructuring, and also lots of migrants are leaving anyway via Austria and Hungary and into the west side of Germany. So in the end, it all comes back together. The end of 1991.